Okay, at this time, I'm going to call the meeting back out of recess, and we'll begin the meeting at 6:05. This meeting is now back in order. First agenda item for this evening will be agenda item number 4. This is a discussion, approval, or disapproval of the regular minutes from the regular meeting, the minutes of the regular meeting conducted on September 18, 2014. Have you all had a chance to look at these minutes?
Yes.
Chairman Woolley, I would make a request to hold out on approval of the minutes. I'd like to speak with staff about a couple of things first.
Is it reference to corrections?
Yes.
Can we go ahead and get the corrections on the record first?
Be a good idea, yeah.
Unless there's something I don't know about.
Well, you know, if there's more than one, instead of walking through them, maybe she can share her concerns with us, and we can work on it, and we can put it back on the next agenda.
That's fine.
Okay. We have a new person that started to do the minutes, so that the style of them is a little bit different, perhaps. So we'll kind of fine tune that, and we'll get them on the next agenda, if that's okay with the commission.
Yeah, Commissioner Garcia, can you go ahead and restate your motion?
Thank you for the promotion, Chairman.
I had a vision. Can you go ahead and restate your motion then, please?
I make a motion that we do not approve the minutes at this time, that we hold them over to the next meeting in order for staff to review.
I'll second.
Does that work?
I have a motion on the floor to table the minutes until the next meeting pending corrections. And the motion was made by Commissioner Garcia, seconded by Commissioner Pranzo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Those meetings have been tabled to the next meeting. Minutes have been tabled to the next meeting.
Thank you.
Next agenda item for this evening will be agenda number 5 under old business. This will be a continued public hearing from the September 4th, case number PZC 29-14- conditional use permit on the North Florence Tank site. Mr. Ogeen is going to do a quick presentation, and then we'll go right back into the public hearing after that. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, good evening. My name is Gilbert Ogeen, and I'll give the presentation tonight. In front of you is a replat of Vista Hermosa Unit 1A. In front of you is Vista Hermosa Unit 1A Track B, property that the town owns. It's approximately 1.45 acres of land in size. Has been utilized in the past by the town of Florence for public infrastructure. Currently, it is zoned R2, multifamily zoning district. We're here tonight because we wish to present this case to you. The intent of the application tonight is to receive a conditional use permit approval on this case. Tonight we're asking for a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. This property several years ago was replatted. There was some property that was exchanged, and ultimately the town ended up with this piece here to accommodate a tank, a water tank that's used to provide potable water to the residents of Vista Hermosa, and I believe also the Florence Gardens area. The property is located to the north of the Florence Gardens area, and this here shows you the actual site in red, and the 103 properties that exist in the Vista Hermosa subdivision. So tonight, the town is here to show you a new project that, if approved, if the conditional use permit is approved, they're going to locate a second water tank on the site, and it will, I believe it won't exceed 600,000 gallons of water as far as full capacity. They also plan to put some wireless communication towers on that site as well. With the site, though, we're looking at enclosing the entire site with a brick wall and have an access point. The access is going to be off of, the main access on this property is going to be off of Iowa Avenue. And I'll show you here. It's this road that exists here. It's privately owned by Vista Hermosa. The town does have a blanket easement on the property, so it gives us permission to use it to service the towers and get to the towers. Staff is also proposing the site to have all-weather access roads to get into the site and service the tanks if need be, and also have a rolled gate. It'd be basically a metal exterior structure gate that would slide and open on remote control. Now, in front of you we have several, I believe it's 3 plats, several images that show you the actual full package of what's going to be built there. If you have any questions for staff, I'd be happy to answer them, but staff put a pretty good full story together on the staff report. So if you have any questions tonight, I'd be happy to answer them. We do have some people from Vista Hermosa that is here tonight. Did you want to wait till after the public hearing to?
Yeah, let's finish the public hearing
Okay.
first, and then we'll do staff questions. Okay, at this time, we are in a public hearing that was opened on September 4th, so we'll continue that open hearing. So if I have anybody that would like to address the commission at this time, come on up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Just a reminder that during the open hearing, we are not allowed to have a dialect with the public. We're just listening to what you guys have to say at this point. Okay? Do I have anybody from the public that would like to speak at this time? Is there anybody from the public that would like to, oh, I see one over here now. Please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
My name is Rose Kane. My legal name is Rosa Maria Sosa Ochoa Chacon Huggins Kane. I am bilingual. I've just lived at Vista Hermosa for only 7 months, and I am only a renter, that I've been told. That being said, I still have rights as a renter, and I don't understand why you're putting up the second water tower when the first one is not doing the job because it's too old. I have seen things in the summer because I live near it that others haven't because they're not in town. I have seen the rust. I have smelt the sewer in the neighborhood. So the ground is not doing very well, sir. And I'm sure you're familiar with that. I called your council and spoke to them about one of your contractors down at the village throwing sewage into the empty lot. I took a picture of it. Actually, I took a video of it and called to find out why is this happening. Never got a return call. So my question to you, only as a renter, what benefits is Vista Hermosa going to get from all of this?
Thank you. Do I have any other public that would like to speak at this time? Is there any more public that would like to address the commission at this time? With the absence of the public, I will close the public hearing on case number PZC 29-14-CUP. This public hearing is now closed. Staff?
Thank you. Just to comment on the public that made the comment, the second tower is needed to continue to provide services. Not that the one that they have there, as I said before, it has it's been there for quite a while. So this second tank is being proposed to provide continuous services for potable water.
So you'll use both tanks?
I can't hear you, sir. Could you speak into the mic?
Yes. So you'll use both tanks?
I believe so.
Okay. Can you address what she claims she saw?
No, sir, I cannot.
Okay.
We could get back to her, we could speak with the utilities director, John Mitchell, and talk to him, but I don't know about that situation, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any other commissioners that have any questions?
I just have one. Other than the lady that spoke today, was there any other public comment? Because it didn't seem like there was too much.
I had the opportunity to speak with, I believe, Cassie Chronic, the Vista Hermosa HOA president. She came to sit down with John Mitchell, Wayne Costa, town engineer, and myself, and wanted to ask several questions. And it was, I believe, this Tuesday, or last Tuesday, I should say. And she had several questions, and staff addressed them. And later on, she thanked us for giving her that time. We had one phone call, and it was more concern as to why the tower's going up, and that was pretty much it. It wasn't concern, they just had some questions about it, really.
Just one question. I'm not familiar with, as familiar with water provision as I probably should be, or utility provision. I was just reading on the top of page 3 where it says that you're putting in, staff contends that the new proposed water tank will be smaller to the existing water tank and will accommodate 600,000 gallons of potable water. I was just wondering, is it common or is it normal to, rather than replace an old, possibly problematic water tank with one that is larger and newer in design, is it more common to add another one that's smaller so that you have two on the same site?
Chair, Vice Chair, Commission, I apologize. The person I would ask that question to would be the utility director, and he wasn't able to make it tonight. Wasn't aware that Waterworks, the company that is being contracted to put in the water tank, is here, and he'll address that question for you.
Just state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Rob Bryant. I work with Waterworks Engineers. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. And the reason for two tanks, as you asked, is for operational flexibility. That allows the utilities department to take one tank offline, clean it, inspect it, repaint it if required, while the other tank can stay online and still provide potable service in this area. As the resident did note, the existing tank is rusting, and there is an allowance for recoating of that existing tank in this project, not only to restore the paint, but also to make all the new facilities, the paint to match and look the same.
So I guess with a smaller tank, it's still sufficient to maintain adequate water to the nearby residents, even if you take the other one offline? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it is, for a short amount of time. The 600,000 gallons that both tanks provide is enough for fire flow demand for the larger facilities. Those being the ICE facilities and the National Guard facilities have the highest fire flow in this area.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Any questions? No. Is it possible that we could have, at some point this evening, somebody get the name of that lady and her information, and let's get her issues forwarded to Public Works? I think some of that was answered tonight by the visitor from the company. I just want to make sure that she gets her answers for her questions. So if we could take care of that, that'd be great.
Yes, sir.
All right, do I have any other questions on this?
No.
If I have no further questions, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we forward a favorable recommendation on CUP case PZC-29-14-CUP.
I have a motion on the floor to forward a favorable recommendation on case number PZC 29-14, conditional use permit on the North Florence tank site. The motion made tonight was by Commissioner Petty and seconded by Commissioner Puttrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Please forward a favorable recommendation on this case to the Town Council. Next agenda item for this evening will be item B under old business. This is case number PZC 30-14- preliminary plat on the Vista Grande at Walker Butte project. A preliminary plat application for Vista Grande at Walker Butte submitted by the United Engineering Group. The subject site is approximately 154 acres in size and is located on west of the Union Pacific Railroad and south of the Hiller Road alignment in Florence, Arizona, 85132. Do we have a presentation on that this evening?
Yes, we do, Chair. Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, it's a pleasure to be before you again tonight. You guys know we saw this plat, our previous Planning and Zoning Commission hearing back in September 18, 2014. Just to get us familiar real quick, we're going to run through this. This is the pre-plat for the area. It's 605 lots and 154 acres. And this is the overall landscape plan. As we reviewed the last meeting, the primary access, when the commission had concerns about access points within the plat, we went back, met with Public Works, Fire Department, Fire Marshal, and the applicant, United Engineering, to look at the access points and the concerns that was brought forth by the commission at the last meeting. So let's review these access points here tonight. So the main thoroughfare that's going to be coming in is the minor arterial road through Walker Granite Road. This is a north-south corridor that actually hooks up into Hunt Highway right along this area. Here's Magic Ranch at Oasis. It comes through right next to the Magic Ranch subdivision and next to the state land as it gets down to the Vista Grande at Walker Butte. The travel lanes of this area, there's going to be two different types. The variation of 110, the right-of-way is 110 feet and 100 feet, and this is due to the differences of right-of-way, a previously dedicated right-of-way along the Magic Ranch and the Arizona State Land Department allowed, which equals 100 feet of right-of-way. So this is the off-site next to the Magic Ranch here. So they're going to have three travel lanes, two travel lanes that are going to be going north, one travel lane that's going south, and they exceed the travel lane width. Now the important thing is looking at this, there's going to be a raised median. They're going to have 12-foot travel lanes and bike lanes and gutter. So this is going to allow for, if there is any issues, to be able to access. They also have a non-curb here, which would be on the west side along Arizona State Land, so there won't be blocked in the area. Excuse me. The secondary access point was one of the main focal points last time, and the proposed, in addition to this road, which is going to be a primary access and allow for the emergency access, this is the secondary access or emergency access into the northeast corner of the subdivision. Connection will be made to the existing 80-foot highway maintenance easement granted through Pinal County as an ingress-egress that is going to be gated and access only that the fire department can use. So this is where the Hunt Highway, where the fire truck allows the apparatus to be able to turn and access and safely into the community. They will have the access into the area if, for some reason, Walker Granite Road is inaccessible at the time. Besides that, the community will have those three access points off of Walker Granite Road. The main one, which is Wagon Wheel Road that goes through as a collector, and then the two minor streets that are going to be going into the community. The applicant, United Engineering, is here with us tonight if you have any additional questions. Also, we have the fire department has approved this and reviewed these access points and are okay with, they're fine with this. They approve this as long as they meet specific all-weather access road and certain engineering standards. The town engineer has given us the okay to go forward to make sure that they meet engineering standards to be able to allow for a fire truck to travel down that road during certain weather conditions. So they've committed to meet all these standards and these access points due to the commission's concern. The town staff recommends approval of this pre-plat due to the conditions that are stated on the staff report. Any questions?
Do you have any questions?
Yeah. His name's Keith. The PUD on this, is it being updated to reflect all these additional stipulations?
The PUD would have to go through a zone change to be updated. I don't think, I'll allow the
Member
director to...
Pronto, Chair, Commission, they're not modifying the zoning per se. They're just modifying the ingress and egress conditions of the preliminary plat. So the plat is consistent with the zoning. The zoning tells you how many lots you can have, what your density is, what the lot width and lot depth are, what the setbacks are, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing really that they've modified is having the secondary access, which came up, I understand, at the last minute, and it's a valid concern. But as Heath noted, we were able to work with the fire marshal, the town engineer, and Pinal County was very quick to react on to allowing us that access point as well. Very accommodating on that. So that's really an engineering detail that doesn't have to be addressed in the PUD. So the PUD is still okay for Walker Butte.
All right. I wish I had a bigger picture of what was going on. It's very difficult to look at these and really understand how the access points are working. As long as the fire department is signed off on this and the roads are going to be made weather access before building permits are issued, then I'll be satisfied with that. But I stipulate before building permits are issued.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And Chair, members of the Commission, the arterial roadway to the west and all the internal local streets, of course, are all going to be designed to town standards. So they're paved, curb, gutter, sidewalks, street lights, everything like that. The only road that would be an all-weather access, which has to accommodate our fire trucks, is going to be the emergency access to Hunt Highway. Right now, with the depending on the status of the annexation, if the annexation does go through, that emergency access roadway, that easement actually goes to the town of Florence. We have full control over it. Right now, with that being in the county, we're also subject to their design standards as far as what the surface needs to be, how the gate operates, what the driveway needs to be when we
So we take responsibility for the maintenance of that road?
Yes, because that actually is a public right-of-way. Right now, it's a public right-of-way in the county. Upon annexation, it would be our public right-of-way. So we would control the design and the usability of that roadway. And the particular concern will be how the driveway is designed off of Hunt Highway. So you're not tracking dirt, gravel, whatever onto that road, and that we're not inviting the public to use that as an access point. It clearly is going to be defined as an emergency access, and the intent is that it's an emergency access that never has to be utilized, as we see with most of these, but it's nice to have it in your back pocket just in case.
One of the headaches with the development along Hunt Highway has always been access to Hunt Highway. These subdivisions bottleneck at their entrance point, and you got people backed up trying to get on. I guess there's not much we can do about that. What about setting a precedent as development goes further south from this one?
Well, Member Pronzo, Chair, members of the Commission, the great thing about Walker Butte is as it gets beyond this first phase, their first phase is up here because it's adjacent to Magic Ranch. It's where the development is coming. Now, of course, we're hitting a little bubble in the development world again, but when it picks up again, they're in the proximity to where the development is occurring, so they're going to phase from the north going down south. As they go southward, they end up having access off of Franklin Road, which is the road that comes out at the Anthem Hospital. Further down, they're going to have access to Merrill Ranch Parkway, And then I believe further south of that, they even have additional access that would come out onto Hunt Highway. A little more challenging because we have to deal with the curve in Hunt Highway when you get that far south. But ultimately, they're going to have multiple points of access out to Hunt Highway, whether it be Walker, Granite Butte, Emergency Access, Franklin, Merrill Ranch, and so forth. The unfortunate thing about the project is that to the west is the Gila River Indian community, so there's no way that, in this case, that you have another way in and out of the development. You have to move north and east to get out of this project, and it's just constrained that way.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
I just want to ask a clarifying question about the easement, because I understand it's for fire department use only, and that makes sense. Well, obviously, I think the concerns that were expressed previously were in the event of an emergency and being able to vacate this location. So my question is, who else is going to control the easement besides the fire department? Because, for example, if this ends up being an iron gate that only one person has the key to, I guess that would be my question is this something that the HOA is also going to control, or is that kind of
Member Garcia.
not been addressed yet?
Oh, certainly. Member Garcia, Commission Chair. Good question, of course. That gate would be controlled by the town of Florence, and they haven't specified a design for it yet, but typically they put on a Knox box or some kind of key that the fire and police department have access to it. It won't, the HOA, the residents won't have access to that gate, because really we only want it there if there's an emergency. And the emergency could be, really there's not a really likely scenario of there being an emergency that would require that, because they're going to have the full access off of the arterial accessing Hunt Highway. But if the fire department felt like, there's a major situation here, we need another way in and out for us, and or to get folks out of this community, they're going to open that gate for folks. And they might even, sometimes they even design it just simply as a crash gate. But most likely it'll have a gate on it that either has a remote control that's controlled by police and fire, and or they'll get out and unlock it with a key that they have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The way I understand this now, the second point of access or egress is gated. Is that correct?
Member Pronzo, Chair. Yes, that point, there's actually 3 points of ingress and egress off of the arterial roadway that leads you to Hunt Highway, which is not uncommon for subdivisions to lead you to an arterial leads you to another arterial.
Let me just get down to it.
Mm-hmm.
You've got an egress that's all the way to the west of the subdivision, that's correct? It's a dirt road or whatever that travels north?
The road that would be to the west of the subdivision, between this subdivision, that you see on the west of the subdivision, that's a paved arterial roadway. So that will have multiple lanes in each direction. So even in the scenario where there's a car that breaks down on one lane, there's still the ability to travel on that roadway.
So you're west of Magic Ranch, traveling north to Hunt Highway?
Yes.
Currently a dirt road?
It's currently a dirt road, but that would be an off-site improvement that they have to complete to get to Hunt Highway. So
Developer does?
absolutely. So all the roads in their development in that west arterial roadway would have to be improved to our standards, and then the arterial roadway from their subdivision to Hunt Highway has to be improved. So that's a fully paved arterial roadway. We've got easements from the State Land Department, and also you've already got the right-of-way from Magic Ranch for the eastern portion of the right-of-way, and they've also already have worked with the shopping center that's up there, the Barclay Fry Shopping Center, to make sure that there's the easement and the improvements can be done for the roadway there.
See it. So you've got 2 access points
Absolutely.
that are open all the time
Yes.
and will be paved?
Yes. And then the one short segment that you see there by the railroad track to the east, the little red hash thing on your screen right now.
Yeah, I see it.
That's just for emergency access. So we're not inviting the public to go in and out that way. It's not designed that way, nor would it really be ideal for a public ingress egress, because it is immediately adjacent to the railroad, so it wouldn't be a great location for the public, general public, to be going left or right at that point.
Which
as they move
prompts
on-
the question, why did you feel you needed that if you had 2 points?
Because I believe because, well, number one, it's there. When we were looking at, when the issue came up about access and can we adequately deal with emergencies, I believe the fire department actually felt pretty comfortable as it was. But when we saw that opportunity to come out this way, and actually then found out through the public records that it was already a deeded easement, what a great opportunity to utilize those. And we asked the counties, since it's their access easement, we asked them if we could utilize it for this purpose, and they turned around and said, yes, it's great to use it as long as you work with us on the design of it. So it really just came together very nicely to have that there. Like I said before, it's in our back pocket if the emergency folks ever need it.
Great, I'm clear now, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm not. I was, but there is not 2 egress points. There's 1 public, 1 emergency, correct?
No.
Equals 2 egress points. Am I correct on that? We have the big, long one that they're going to pave. It's going to have 2 exits to the north, 1 in from the north, correct?
Actually, out of the subdivision. So they're building a subdivision. Now the subdivision, I believe there's 3 access points that bring you to an arterial roadway. When you get on that arterial roadway, they will pave the remainder of the arterial roadway all the way up to Hunt Highway.
Agreed.
And so they will have access to 1 arterial, but they will have 3 opportunities to get
Out
on
of the
it,
community.
out of the community.
Right.
In addition to that, emergency vehicles will have an additional opportunity to get out of the project. So you can see the 3 points there. In addition to that, because, quite frankly, we see the market's just going a little crazy here. So I think when it finally starts happening again, when we get to that point, they're ready to build this subdivision, it probably won't be too long before we get to phase 2, phase 3, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to open up those other opportunities again to come out on Franklin, to come out on Merrill Ranch Parkway. And we've already been working for years with the State Land Department to get the additional access points that we need, also working with the railroad, which again, when we cross the railroad, we have the right to cross the road. We just work with them on the preemptive signage and the crossing, the engineering of the crossing and so forth. But we're already okay to cross the railroad as we get further south.
Right.
But we also have obtained the easements from the State Land Department, or close to doing so, to come out on Merrill Ranch Parkway, et cetera. So as the subdivision develops, we're going to have many, many ways in and out of the subdivision. It's just the first phase is a little...
I think if I recall this meeting, it wasn't so much the egress out of the community, it was the fact that we had this community with three driveways, if you will, dumping onto what was presented to us last time is a very minor road. So all this traffic was going north to Hunt Highway on one tiny little minor road. So if I am understanding, the big change is now that we're putting 2 12-foot in northbound and a 12-foot in southbound. So we should be able to, in the event of an emergency, we should be able to get cars out of there in a timely manner and not have this huge traffic pileup waiting to get out of there.
Chair, Commissioner, you're absolutely correct that we're building an arterial roadway, so it won't be the dirt road that's there, and it won't be just 2 lanes in each direction. There will be multiple lanes. So if there is an event where a lane gets blocked, clearly you can
Divert traffic.
You can divert traffic and be in another lane. So that alone is going to work really well. Emergency access, again, it's just nice to have, just in case.
Yeah, I think the way we took it last time was that we were talking about like a subdivision street was coming off of Hunt Highway down to this community. So it just logistically it doesn't make sense. What they presented tonight makes sense. It gets traffic out without creating a huge issue.
Absolutely, that is the major roadway that it comes out to on the west. Yes.
Do you have any further questions, concerns? If I don't have any further questions or concerns, I'll go ahead and take a motion on this case.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we forward a favorable recommendation, case PZC 30PP Vista Grand at Walker Butte.
Commissioner Pranzo, could you change your motion, please, to approve? It's a preliminary plat. We approve preliminary plats.
Oh,
Approve or deny, we don't forward it. So,
Thank you. Then I will make a motion that we approve preliminary plat case PZC 3014PP.
I'll second it.
I have a motion on the floor to approve the preliminary plat on the Vista Grande at Walker Butte project, case number PZC 30-14- preliminary plat. The motion made this evening was made by Commissioner Pronzo and was seconded by Commissioner Putrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The preliminary plat on this project has been approved. Next agenda item this evening will be 6. This is going to be new business. This is case number PZC 33-14- design review. This is on the Town of Florence Library and Recreation Complex. Tonight is a presentation, approval, or disapproval of a design review application for the Town of Florence first phase of development with the Territorial Town Square. The proposed project lies within the portion of the 40-acre Territorial Square Phase 1 property, which is generally located at the northwest corner of Main Street and the First Street alignment that was recently elevated and graded. This design review application considers the concept master plan of Phase 1 40-acre site in order to best anticipate the future development plans for the property, not only as it relates to the initial construction project, but the remainder of the Territorial Square project. More specifically, this design review application provides specific information related to the plans to develop a library, pool, ball fields, tennis courts, parking, and other improvements on this portion of Phase 1 40-acre site. I'm assuming we have a presentation on this?
Chair, members of the commission, we're actually going to turn the presentation, the details of the presentation, over to Aaron with Heidel Architects, and there's other members of the project team here as well. But he's going to kind of walk you through the project. You're all, I believe, quite familiar with the Territory Square development. Some of you have been on the commission for a while, that you've kind of been intimately involved in that project. And of course, you've all have seen the heavy equipment on the property moving the dirt, and you're aware that the elevation was raised on that site to bring it out of the floodplain. But this first 40 acres of Territory Square, we've designed really to be the first phase of this big project. Of course, over at the Windmill Winery, he's actually part of Territory Square as well. But really, this is the first new development that's occurring within the project. And I'm sure that at meetings or in the paper, you've heard about these facilities. We're at this stage now where we've got pretty detailed plans for the building architecture, the site plan, the master plan, et cetera, and we're bringing this process forward so we can get ready to move towards construction here in the near future. So without further ado, Aaron's going to show you a pretty great presentation that I hope you'll enjoy.
Thank you. As Mark said, I'm Aaron Babcock, and I'm with Heidel Architects, but I am representing Low Mountain Construction, who's the design-build team for this project. The project does consist of a Phase 1 of a 40-acre master plan. It sits within the Territory Square zoning district, and the components that are comprised are really municipal in nature. So we have a library community center, we have an aquatics facility, we have soccer fields, tennis courts, pickleball courts, the associated parking for that, as well as there is some land allocation for a future development within this Phase 1 portion. Looking at the Territory Square, and Mark said, you guys are very intimate with it. And when we started the project, knowing that we were within this framework or vision plan, and specifically within the core zoning district, we understand that the nature of the design is to be urban in scale, 2 to 3 stories in height, buildings that hug the perimeter of the walls with parking to the interior. Looking at our master plan, the study area is bound by Main Street and First Street, and it's the 40 acres that are directly adjacent to the building that have been raised. So the organization of the master plan started to set the organization of the Phase 1 components. That being that there really are 2 nodes leading along Main Street. So we have a node leading from the Gila River, and we have a node that is entering in from Main Street to the south. The placement of our project was to the south of the 40 acres, and it really gave us the ability to look at 2 points with a center node within the 40-acre master plan, which would be a future town hall. That placement really was the genesis of then putting a pedestrian walkway with a gateway entry and a plaza here with a pedestrian walk to that central point, as well as part of the master plan would be then a civic plaza main entry to the future town hall off of Main Street. That gave us an opportunity to start our development at the corner of First and Main with a plaza, and then locate the library building directly adjacent to Main Street to start to continue that character of putting a building next to the Main Street road. When we look at the master plan and how the Phase 1 fabric fits within it, we have the library, future rec, aquatic, associated parking, town hall, and then we start to reorient ourselves towards the Gila River with a mixed-use development and the associated parking. So the Phase 1 specifically, as I stated, it consists of a 27,000 square foot library and community center. This is a joint use facility as well as some government offices that are within it. It is located off of Main Street with a entry or plaza directly to the south of it at the corner of First and Main Street. Directly adjacent to that would be the open area I mentioned for a future development of a rec center. We have an aquatic facility that consists of a bath house, recreation pool, and a lap pool. And then to the farthest west, we have new soccer fields, pickleball, and tennis courts. And then the associated parking, as you saw in the master plan, starts to become to the interior of the actual development. So the circulation within it, we have 2 points of access, one down Main Street coming up, and then one from Main Street coming up, one off of First Street coming up. And what you're seeing with this diagram is really the vehicular circulation throughout the site. So we've analyzed and looked at how our fire trucks are going to get through the site, as well as deliveries and trash trucks and how they access it. The orange lines that you're seeing in here are our analysis of the pedestrian flow through the site as well. So since this is a community-based project, we understand that there's going to be opportunities and times when we potentially have people that are playing soccer or at the tennis courts that will then walk over and utilize the other facilities. So the pedestrian movement was something that we specifically looked at as part of this development. The parking that I talked about, it is really one group of parking, but it is split as far as how our calculations worked for it, because we analyzed the library requirements, the pool requirements, the tennis, the soccer. We also took into account what future rec potentially could be. What you're seeing here is really what is required for the Phase 1 development components. The drainage on the site, because that site was just recently raised and it is flat, there'll be a little bit of regrading that's going to take place, and how we're going to do that is catch it basically within our parking lot area, so everything's sloping to this, and then we're lowering the soccer fields as our detention, and then have our outflow to the actual southwest corner of the site. As I mentioned at the very beginning, this is all within the Territory Square zoning district, the core district itself, and everything adjacent to it is within that core. The landscape for the Phase 1 consists of trees and shrubbery. We're looking at a pistache tree as well as the mulga tree for the plaza area, as well as then in front of the, as well as in front of the library and the aquatics facilities. We're looking at the willow for out in the parking lot areas. There's some Texas Mountain Laurel that really becomes not necessarily a screen, but it's a transition from this road that we have leading in front of the library to the actual parking area itself. We have the evergreen elms then within the parking area. The willow actually then starts to define this pedestrian movement as it would develop in the future and would be bordered on either side. The desert willow is then utilized in the pedestrian walkway directly adjacent to the library area. Then the Ruella and the red yucca are dispersed around the library site within decomposed granite. So the facilities themselves, to give you a brief overview of what they are, as mentioned, the library community center is about 27,000 square feet. This is a unique facility in the sense that we are combining both community functions with a library. So the blue portion that you're seeing is really the public library portion. However, it's situated in such a way that we have public public program rooms that transition between the library and then this open space. This open triangular space is what we're considering an interior plaza. It's just a place for the community members to come, a place for them to sit, a place for them to relax. It's really kind of a living room of the community, let's say. And then we have meeting rooms and recreation program rooms that work off of that. So it's going to give the ability for the Park and Rec to have access to far more spaces than they would if they had an individual building, and that can be said for the library as well. So this joint use facility, we think, is a very efficient use of the space that's allocated. The aquatics facility consists of a bathhouse, a leisure pool, 2 slides, a diving well, and the lap pool. And the equipment building for the associated components, pump house, chemical storage that goes with the pool. So the facility design specifically, knowing that it was a part of the Territory Square and understanding the components of the North End Vision Framework, this plaza really became a genesis for the design of where we placed this building and what it started to do. We see this plaza as a gateway into this development. It really defines the space because you have this linkage of pedestrian walk that will visually connect you when you first drive into the development to the future town hall, as well as giving you a break from that main street. To define this plaza, we see the building as a backdrop to that. And the building itself, the components of it, really we try to take components that we see throughout the community and utilize them in a modern way. Specifically, when you look at this, we're taking the plaza, we're using the building as a backdrop, and the idea that we had was that it would become transparent so that people within the library really get to experience that plaza that sits out to the south, as well as people that congregate or are within the plaza, they get to experience the activity, see the activity that's inside the library as well. So it becomes a backdrop for that all-important plaza. Running along Main Street, you'll notice that we have a series of canopy systems, and we have an in-and-out rhythm. The old shops on Main Street, when you walk down, a lot of times as you walk by, you're doing your window shopping, and the door is depressed back. There's sort of a niche. We've created that within the library in this area and this area. We're utilizing them inside the library as a seating area. Because they're set back, they're going to be shaded, and it just is a modern way to still use something that's found on Main Street and keep that character and rhythm going, as well as the canopy systems. Off the parking lot is the main entry into the library building. The materials you're starting to see here are block, stucco, a rusted steel. The entrance into the library itself is not a gabled roof. It's a smaller roof area, but there is a clear story light monitor that sits above that. So as you come in, you're still going to get that filtered light within the entry area, which will then fill within that interior plaza area. So the materials specifically at the elevations, the south of elevation that faces the plaza, you have the glass with the block, and we're talking about 2 different types of block. We're talking about 2 different colors of block, 2 different types of block, a ground face and a rock face. And they're representative of the actual materials that we have. I do have a sample board for you guys. So the block that we're looking at are these guys right here. So the colors you're seeing, we try to put them in the model itself. We took pictures of these and put them in there. So it's a pretty good representation of what they are. The other materials that you're seeing are the stucco that we have on the building. We have a rusted steel, which we are going to utilize an actual steel members So as we go around, it really is a combination of an accent block, the main field block, and then the stucco, with the rusted steel being the canopy components or exposed steel beam components on the building itself. As far as the height of this, it really fits in with the 2 to 3 story character. So, you know, we're 30 feet at the peak of the roof, so we're not any higher than that. It's a 27,000 square foot building, but we're trying to break it up into these smaller components so it has a smaller feel to it sitting on the site. It doesn't feel like just one big mass. Moving around the rec programming rooms, you know, stucco combination. And then on the south, because we do have this glass that sits in here, we're bringing out shade canopy. So we're bringing the actual roof structure and then putting shading on either side out about 16 feet or so that we can cut off the sun angle because it does face south, so we're not getting such harsh sun within there and not overloading our mechanical system and letting too much natural light into the southern portion of the building. The other thing I wanted to mention was that we were utilizing the positioning of these roof elements to start to screen our rooftop units, our mechanical units, so that no mechanical units are visible from within the actual 40-acre master plan. Inside, I wanted to just give you an idea of what it is. This is the interior plaza. So we have glue laminated beams that are exposed within the area. We are going to try to utilize some skylights to let natural light. And then specifically, we're using these same materials on the inside. So the outside and inside start to work together. And there starts to be some consistency in materials. Inside the library, this is looking south. You have a glue laminated truss system. We're going to expose some of the block, and then as you can see, there's a lot of glass, so it's a nice light-filled library, a lot of natural light within the space. The aquatics facility has a bathhouse as part of the component. We're utilizing the same block, the same gabled roof forms, so that we're getting consistency within the whole phase one design that can then be repeated within the whole 40-acre master plan. So this is really just a combination of the same blocks and same roof forms. Then I wanted to give you, lastly, is kind of a flavor of the pool. So the pool itself does consist of 2 slides and several shade structures. And those are where we can really start to bring in a pop of color within the actual 40-acre area. We haven't defined what the color of these components will be, but they will be some sort of bright colored system, both the shade canopies and the slides. Questions?
I think it's more of a typo than a question. If you go back a couple...
You bet.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. I'll tell you when. It just shows I was paying attention.
Keep going.
Yeah. Nope. Right there. You have a water slide in the middle of the lap pool?
Oh, no, so I probably didn't explain this very well, sorry. So this is the recreation pool. So you have a beach entrance into it, and then these 2 areas right here are kind of unique in configuration to where they're about 3 feet. Is that me? I don't think it liked your question. So you have these pools that are only about 3 feet deep. They have seats in them for people to be able to sit, also for swim lessons. And then the actual slides are here that then go into just a slide pool. So the dive wells here, these are all shade canopies, and then that's the lap pool.
Right, but we have the lap pool in Slam as water slide.
It's misleading.
Oh,
See, I was paying attention.
you were. It's a really little slide. It's a tiny one.
No, that was really all I had.
Okay.
Any questions?
I have a question for staff.
Okay.
Being that I'm only been on P&Z for a couple of months, I'm really not up to speed with how far along this has gone. But if I'm to believe the newspapers, town council has already appropriated on this project. Is that correct?
Chair, members of the commission. Uh, The town council has approved the contract with Low Mountain. They've actually approved two contracts, the initial design contract and then ultimately the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price for the development of the project. So they have gone forward with that, saying, yes, we're going to do this. Now we've gotten to the point where we've taken it to the level of Is this one?
This one out? Yeah.
I guess just cut through it, Mark. What we're looking at is it etched in granite.
The 40 acres represents the site that was graded, so it's clearly represented by the pad out there. We've been working closely with them for quite some time to develop the master plan and then the site plan specific for this project, and now really focusing on the building materials, the exact design of the building, the architectural character, the thematic elements, the materials that we're going to use, and so forth. So what essentially the council has approved is a contract to go forward with the project for a library and aquatic center not to exceed a certain amount. What the contract doesn't specify is really, how the building is going to be laid out on the property and how the site plan is developed and what the building is going to look like. That's what we've been working on since that point, and that's what we're presenting you tonight, is more of the details of what the building is going to look like. And then also we've been working on the materials on the inside. We've been working on the infrastructure plans and so forth. So we are, just to be clear, we're looking at the typical stuff. We're looking at a design review package. It's not a matter of we're not looking at the project itself or whether it's happening or not happening. We're looking specifically at the design review package, which is the site plan and the elevations and so forth. And as the project evolves more and we get more details on maybe some of the other improvements that occur or signage, things like that, we'll continue to bring those forward to you. This is a huge project that I'm sure is, it's going to continue to have some evolution to it, and certainly you're going to see sign packages come forward.
Well, I have a question then for the architect. I don't possess the skills to look at this and know whether it works or not. And so it prompts me to ask you kind of building designs when you look at Florence. Have you used them elsewhere, and how successful have they been?
So to answer that question, we've done, my firm, we're actually out of Texas, but we've done libraries for the last 30 years, and we've done hundreds of them. So we deal specifically with municipal facilities. So types of projects like this, yes, we have done. And what I think is really unique about this facility design that we haven't seen a lot of is the combination of the library, the recreation, the aquatic, all into one area. So typically those are laid out in different areas in a lot of cities. Sometimes you see them similar. But because of the close proximity here and the idea that in the future you might have a rec center, there's this synergy for the community to utilize the facilities in a much better way, because you might get a family that comes and one child wants to go do something at the library and somebody else wants to do some sort of rec programming thing. Now you have the ability to do that. The other thing I'd say is, just from a personal note, I was kind of overwhelmed at the council meeting that approved this project. There was a huge outpouring by the community. And not living in the community, but being aware of the community, I didn't realize that the citizenry felt so strong about having something here for not only themselves but their children to be able to utilize. So to answer you, yes, I think this design works especially well, better than a standalone library or a standalone aquatic or a standalone rec. Because I think when you combine them together, you get this great synergy that really benefits each of them together as opposed to just independently. Did that answer your question?
Well, getting back to it, have you, see, this is very hard to work with because we're looking at something where the town is spending a lot of money. You've made the comment that the citizens want it, and for everyone that wants it, I can find one that doesn't, or is afraid of it because of the overhead it presents. And the thing is that I'm nervous that this has to be a success. And so when I look at the architecture that's being used, I'm not sure that it's compatible, or it seems so much different than this building or the Main Street buildings. So I look at it more and I see Anthem. I don't see Florence. And I'm just nervous that this is not going to be successful. If it's not successful, we got an incredible white elephant sitting out there. So I'm looking for reassurances, concrete reassurances, that you've done this before and that it has been successful in this kind of environment.
Like I said, we've done many municipal projects, and this one I think will be very successful. To get to your point about the architecture, I think one of the things that when we worked with the staff came up is that Territory Square, this zoning district, you guys put a tremendous effort in creating it, and there's such this great vision for this area that the idea that we wanted to respect the past that was here in Florence, but give this area something unique unto itself, I think it actually will help it be a success, because it's not going to be just like what was on Main Street, but it's going to start to have its own identity and be able to build upon that.
Chair, members of the commission, I think I'm back on. I just wanted to say as well, from a functional standpoint of whether we think the library works or the pool works, et cetera, we also have the Parks and Rec director here tonight and the library director. And we have all the staff has been working really, really closely with their team. Beyond Hedel and Low Mountain, also we've been working a lot with Swaback Partners, because Swaback helped us in the development of the North End Framework Plan and also the development of the Territory Square Plan. So I can let the Parks and Library folks speak a little bit to the functionality of the facilities, whether they're satisfied with them. They can also share with you that both the Library Board and the Parks and Recreation Board have lent their support to the project as a whole, and also even to the design of the buildings. But furthermore, Aaron is correct, and we've actually have kind of we initially were struggling a little bit with the architecture, because we felt just like you, Mr. Pronzo, and the other members of the commission up there, I'm sure. Whereas we're doing something really huge, and it's huge for Florence, but it's also huge for Territory Square. And that really, we're putting that footprint down there, and we're setting the example, and we're setting some of the thematic components of the development. So we're concerned about what are the materials that we use for this site, what are some of the colors that we utilize, what are the architectural designs that we use. We don't want to replicate anything to the north, and we don't want to replicate anything to the south. Territory Square is, again, supposed to be a standalone district that really is that bridge from basically the new growth occurring north of the Gila River and the existing growth to the south of it. In the Territory Square document, you see some references to architectural styles. And in the core area of Territory Square, which this is, where the municipal complex is, it talks about this really continuation of that feel of getting these buildings that have more awnings, and they're closer to the road, and they have that sense of scale and that sense of character. And I think Hedel, and also with the input of staff and Swaback Architects, we've developed that there, and we have features in these buildings that you can pull out components now and continue to have that thematic element of whether it's a commercial building on 79 that's part of Territory Square, or whether it's single-family residential homes or apartments that occur in the development, there's now materials and colors and architectural styles, thematic elements that we can carry through to have consistency in Territory Square. And they really, you know, we realize, and the architect, I think, has done a good job of trying to respect, you know, the history of this site, you know, the agricultural heritage of this site, the historic history of Florence, and some of the elements that are common to Florence, but at the same time not doing it in a way that looks like we're trying to replicate any historic buildings. So, you know, there's the agrarian style there, there's a touch of that territorial style, I think, in there, but definitely when you see the building broken up a little bit and the use of the ephes or the stucco, you see that there's also, you know, an intent to make sure that it's obvious that these are modern buildings. So, you know, we didn't want to say, you know, this is a continuation of a historic Main Street. It's not by any means. It's a project that has its own unique character in many different ways. But as to the functionality, we have walked through every square foot of that building, talking about like how everything would be laid out and how it would work and who would use what part of that building and how these spaces would work with each other from a functional standpoint, how that plaza would be used, how we could program both the exterior plaza and the interior plaza. And Hidell and Low Mountain have just been, you know, a pleasure to work with so far. Today we started getting into some of the interior colors, and you saw some of the interior designs. We started talking about some of the tiles and the carpets and the wood and stuff that would be used, and this is absolutely just going to be top-notch facility. So we're very comfortable with it. Going full circle, if you would like Parks and Library to kind of talk about their position on the project, they'd be happy to come forward as well.
Well, I just want to hit really kind of on what Gary's saying, because I kind of feel a little bit the same way he does. I love the whole concept so far, but I'm going to use Verado as an example. Their concept of Territorial Square works. You know, it's its own personality. It's like nothing else we've seen. It really just works. And there's different colored buildings, but they all have the same idea, especially when you get right in that little core area towards the middle. My question is, the design that we have set right now, is that adaptive to our Territorial Square as it continues to grow? Or is it going to be, that's the municipal side, this is the business side, and they look different because they can't really adapt to what the municipal side looks like? Because I envision it all kind of blending together. So.
And to answer you, absolutely. I think the intent of it is that we want it to blend all together. So a couple of the things that you see there that can be translatable to a municipal building or a mixed use or whatever else, you know, you have a gabled roof form. You know, that can take on a life of itself for anything. The type of materials that we're using and the color scheme that we're suggesting are elements that can repeat themselves in these other elements or these other areas. Specifically, when I talked about breaking the building up, that's done intentionally so that the scale of the building starts to relate to like a mixed-use development in the future. So if we had just this big 27,000 square foot municipal building, it would look municipal, and sometimes that doesn't relate itself very well to mixed use where you have smaller shops. So if you look at, you know, the gabled roof form of just the library, you know, that component itself is, you know, 12,000 square feet. It's, you know, half the building, let's say. Well, that is much more transferable and relatable. So I think from a massing perspective, it can translate. I think from a materials perspective, it can translate, and there are elements on the building that then can translate. You know, the canopy system that we're suggesting, that could be awning systems, you know, on storefronts at a later on development. So the idea being is we tried to be very cognizant of the standard we're setting and not trying to set something that is so thematic that it can't be repeated and tweaked, because I think that's part of good design too. You want the theme to work throughout the 40 acres, but you don't want everything to have to look like a repetitive element.
Right. So are you comfortable right now that as don't even think just municipal, as the Territorial Square grows, this footprint that we're laying down, because like Mark nailed it on the head, this is the first step in the dirt. Everything from there is just continued footprints. And do you feel comfortable as the design person that this is a strong footprint, that when these developers start looking at our Territorial Square, they're going to go, I like that. I want to be there. I know it's going to work for us, the municipal part. I'm worried about the bigger picture of Territorial Square as a whole.
So let's go back to the master plan, and Mark was right, Swayback Partners they basically defined the master plan part of this, okay? So we worked very closely with them. We were responsible really for the phase one. They were responsible for the greater master plan. So I can tell you, in working with Jeff Denzek, I do feel supremely confident in the way that this is laid out, because I think the things that are so unique about it is, we're addressing the Gila River. And the development that you see up here, starts to have sort of a life on its own. And then you have, this municipal core. So I think as far as a developer goes, I don't know if they're going to come in here and say, hey, I don't want to be part of just this municipal thing stuck in the middle of this municipal area. I think this translates very well from municipal into, this mixed use and retail. I think it sets itself up very, very well to do that.
Chairman Willie, members of the commission, may I? Okay. I also want you to note that, we've been working closely with Heidel really specifically on the architecture of these buildings and the design of them, but we've concurrently been working very closely with Swayback Partners and kind of just beaten to death the idea of really making sure we're putting these buildings in the right place for the master plan and making sure we're kind of setting the pace for the architectural goals for the project. And so staff feels comfortable with where we're going on the master plan. Staff feels comfortable with where we're going on the architecture, and Swayback is side by side with us in that thinking. Swayback Partners. So it's, in fact, we were very pleased that Swayback Partners ended up being, I believe, on all the teams that bid on this project. And I think there's even some overlap with Wood Patel, the engineers that we've worked with, kind of being involved with all the teams. So we lucked out in that this team includes Swayback Partners and Wood Patel, two teams that we've been working with for many years now on the engineering. Am I out again? On the infrastructure, on the floodplain issues, and then also as we're talking here tonight about the master plan and the architecture. Because it is so critically important. We're not, we could place, a library anywhere and we could just say, all right, the architecture works for that. But it really, one thing we've just been kind of hitting the team over the head, since we started this project is let's just make sure we're doing something here that's really special and we can pick out some elements of that. Aaron is right in that, you didn't want to do a building that's so super crazy that there's no way you could ever repeat some of those thematic elements or character elements, but you wanted to find something where you could pick out those materials and the colors and some of the styles. So if you're doing single-family residential development in the core, I think Verrado is actually not too far off of an example of where that craftsman style or that little bit of a Spanish influence or a little bit of a territorial influence, just some creative features to your elevations would work really well within the confines of this project. If you're doing more commercial buildings along 79 though, ultimately, you're still going to have, relative, boxy looking buildings, whether it's small stores or inline shops, whatever, but you can now easily pick out, you can have a mix of a flat roof or a gabled roof. You could have some steel awnings on your building. You could use some of the colors or the block that's used on these. Still have a modern commercial building, but throw in some of these elements, and now you're going to have consistency. And Mr. Pranzo, referred to Anthem before. This is completely different than Anthem, but but it goes back to that Anthem example a little bit in that you see that consistency that's being spread throughout the community, so that the Safeway and the Poston Butte Golf Club and the fitness center and even the hospital and even the charter school that's out there, you're seeing, they're all unique buildings, but you see some consistency throughout them with the style, the use of some of the awnings and some of the standing seam metal features, some of the block that's utilized, and so you're in an area where you see, well, you're in a community here, there's consistency. I think we're easily going to be able to achieve that in this project as well, of having that consistency.
Okay, now that we beat the drums and the horns have blared and all of this stuff and everything is fine and copacetic, I have to jump in here. I was on the technical advisory committee for this project. Nothing like this was ever discussed during that whole process. That was, what, a year and a half? So what happened is we have here in the town, we lost the use of the library at the school, and we lost the use of a swimming pool at the school. So we need to build a pool, and we need to build a library. And from that, we have come to this wonderful project. I mean, I like this kind of stuff, but we have the cart before the horse. And when you talk about people making statements about how they like this, I have some statements from people. They've turned down a school bond override 3 times. They turned down home rule this last election cycle. There's a message in that. We have the cart before the horse. Why is the town spending all of this money? Why can't we just build a pool? Why can't we just build a library for now? We have planned communities that aren't being built because developers don't want to spend the money here. We have businesses who will not come here because we don't have a sufficient population to support a business. So this is over the top. This is irresponsible spending by government. And I hate that because it becomes, the project becomes important over the needs of the town, of the people. We need a pool, we need a library. And that's, in my opinion, that's what we should be doing, and that's all we should be doing right now. Thank you.
Any further questions or discussions? Billy?
I guess this will be directed to you as the designer and I guess eventually the builder. I kept looking at this building and I'm looking at that picture there. By the way, your packet is beautiful. The colors are beautiful and thank you for all the detail. I kept looking at the building trying to think where I'd seen it before. It looks very similar to the Coolidge Police Station. I couldn't find an image of the Coolidge Police Station, so I think it must be a common building style out here. And I'm going to go back to the question that Gary asked you about, have you seen this work before? Because for me, when it finally dawned on me, it looks very much like long-term care, which is over at the court complex off of Jason Lopez Circle. And I don't know if, kind of the architectural technology has improved. I would hope so. But I know from personal experience that they had a lot of difficulties with that building, with the way that it's constructed. It just takes in a lot of heat. It's hard to maintain the temperature. Aesthetically, it's very difficult because it echoes, kind of like, when we talk into the microphone, it echoes in the building. So I know that, and then just wiring and basic AC is problematic because of the structure itself. So I'm wondering, I have 2 questions for you. One, are you familiar with that building or possibly the problems that arise in a structure like that? And then I guess my second question is there something like this that we could see that you've already done and it's been a success in a very hot climate like ours?
So to answer your first question, I'm not familiar with the building that you're referencing. But to answer your second question, as far as the really talking about the efficiencies of the building from a environmental standpoint, I had mentioned moving that roof structure farther out. So we've looked at the sun angles and how they're going to impact the building, and within the summer months where we have this tremendous amount of heat here, we are cognizant of that. And so that's why we've pulled it out the distance that we've pulled it out so that we are really shading that for the majority of the day. There is a little bit of direct sun that gets onto it at certain points in time, but we're trying to limit that. We're extending out our canopy systems to the western portion under the rec rooms, and the glass only goes up to 8 feet, so we're limiting the amount of sun that we're trying to get into those areas. That interior plaza that we have, The light that's actually coming down in there only faces north, and then those meeting rooms face north. So we try to be very cognizant of the environmental impact that this building would have, and not only the environmental impact, but it directly affects you guys as a town of how much you have to pay for utilities. So what we can reduce as far as that goes helps us. By putting a galvanized metal roof on this, and we're using a wood truss system, and then we have a purlin system underneath it. What that basically means is that we can create a really deep cavity and insulate it. So this roof structure will be insulated very thoroughly, and with a galvanized roof, we get a reflectance on it. So there's an SR rating, and we achieve what would consider to be a green building with our roof. So we're reflecting a lot of that heat off of it. So, the structures that we have, the roof forms that we have, because we are using a standing seam metal roof, it's extremely durable as far as that goes. To discuss the echoing inside the library, as I said, that's what we do. We do tons of libraries. We're very cognizant of how the sound is going to work within there. We do have a carpet floor within there to start to reduce it. We break it up by the spaces and the rhythms in there. The sidewalls being broken up somewhat really starts to help the acoustics in there. But the volume itself it's a tall volume, but it's not real wide. So we don't anticipate getting the echo that you would typically get within just one large volume that isn't broken up. Because it's so skinny, we're not necessarily going to get the sound travel, or we at least don't anticipate that sound travel. We've done some libraries that have this basic shape to them, this exact shape to them. They've worked very well. One of the things that you do want to have in a library is you do want to have a volume so that you can throw the light up and bring it back down, similar to what these fixtures do. You want a really consistent light to read from, and having this vaulted ceiling enables us to do that. So we'll throw the light up and let it bounce and come back down in. So we have looked at those elements. We're cognizant of the climate here, and we are trying to address those issues to make the building efficient.
You said you've built buildings similar to this. Can you tell us? Can you think of one?
Sure. Well, there's a building in Louisiana that I can think of directly that had glued laminated trusses. It had the same roof form to it. It was a combination of sloped roofs and some flat roofs to it. It wasn't quite as large a building, but it was very similar in nature. And the space inside is a very comfortable space. It's a space that you want to be in, and that's ultimately very important for a library or any type of community building where you have people coming in. That's going to help the use of it if it's a space that people want to go into. That library specifically works quite well, and it is a similar shape and form.
Thank you.
I have a question for staff. If we were to approve this tonight, what would be the next step?
Chair, members of the commission. Actually, they just went to the Parks Board, the Library Board, to kind of give them an update, and they're going to go to the council, Mayor and Town Council, on Monday night to kind of give a similar update. Yes, the project has been awarded. However, we made a commitment from the get-go to provide continual updates. But the next step after Monday of continuing to show council the site plan and the elevations is that we are, because of our schedule and our projected completion date, we're probably just a week away or so from getting ready to have some construction plans coming in the door. Starting with some probably we need to prepare for utilities and construction trailers, but we're really looking at moving forward pretty aggressively on grading and foundation.
So it's my understanding that AutoCAD is at work. You're doing construction drawings as we speak?
So we just submitted our design development package for town review. So yes, we're in the process of putting our technical drawings together.
Wow, the cart is way out in front of the horse. Why bother bringing it to us?
It's still a design review application, so Chair, members of the commission, you have full opportunity to comment on the site plan and the elevations, as does the council on Monday night. You know, there's a contract in place, there's a schedule in place, but ultimately, you know, we are still trying to go through the process and make sure that we're all comfortable with the building. This is an important project. So we are going to you tonight because we want your support of the site plan and the elevations, just as we would with any other design review application.
To be perfectly honest with you, like I said before, I do not possess the skills to pass judgment on this, whether it's a success or not. I really don't. My background is mechanical. But I also feel like it's an important decision, and I haven't had enough time to really spend with this to develop important questions or even make up my mind. You've done a great job of presenting it, nothing against that. And staff has worked hard, along with all of the rest of the people, to put a good package together. But you haven't brought me past the nervousness. I'm not there, probably because I haven't had enough time to live with it. And seeing how the drawings are moving forward, I don't know how you feel about rework, but I hate it.
I would agree with you on that, yes.
I guess I'm making a statement, I'm not asking a question, so I'm done.
Anything? Just my opinion, I like the idea that we're not trying to do the whole thing at once. Because, you know, the way it's gone out in the media, and the way it's gone through town is, boom, we're building this huge complex. So it was nice to see when we got the packets that we're breaking it down in phases. I like the fact that we're not doing the whole parking lot right now, we're just doing what we need. We're just doing the pool because that's an immediate need. We're just doing the library because that's an immediate need. So, I guess I'm just making a statement. I have mixed emotions on it, but I'm happy with what was presented tonight. That's how I feel, so. Is there any more discussion?
No, not for me.
There's one other thing, excuse me. I just wanted to mention also that we had a row with Central Arizona College who tried to raise taxes earlier this year. And Barb Manning, who's sitting in the audience here, had direct involvement in that. They wanted a 34% increase. Meanwhile, they built a campus over here on Bella Vista for which they have no students and they have no faculty, but they have a facility over there. That's irresponsible as far as I'm concerned. There are a lot of other things that could be done with the money that we have on hand. Lots of things. There's a lot of work that needs to be done downtown, and I'm done.
Billy?
I'm just going to kind of echo what Commissioner Pranzo said. I feel I feel taken by surprise on it. I understand it's a design review, and so we're looking at it and we're saying, you know, does it fit in with the overall plan? And I guess I would have felt more comfortable if I had possibly gone through the process with Patrick and I knew kind of what the grand vision was, or as Chairman Woolley has this understanding of what this Territory Square is supposed to be, or the idea that's supposed to get across. And I guess for me, it's just the hesitation is, just not fully, not having enough time to process where the concept of the building is coming from and whether it's the best construction or the best placement for something so important. I feel like I get the feeling that this is a big vision for the town of Florence, and it's very important. And so I think that there ought to be enough consideration of what we put in that place and what people are going to see when they come in. Is that what we really want? And so I will echo what Commissioner Pranzo said. I just don't have the comfort level with it. But I understand you all have worked very hard on it, and I can appreciate that, and then those with some history may be more comfortable with.
Anybody else? Any further discussion? With that, if there's no further discussion, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve case PZC-33-14 design review.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion on the floor to approve case number PZC 33-14 design review. Motion made by Commissioner Petty, and the second from Commissioner Garcia. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Do you want a roll call on that?
I'm going to abstain.
Let's do a roll call on that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I don't want to vote against it. I don't want to vote for it.
Chairman Woolley,
Aye.
Vice Chair Patrick,
I'm going to abstain.
Commissioner Pranza,
Against.
Commissioner Petty,
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia.
Aye.
Thank you.
That design review has passed. Please notify the town council. Next agenda item for this evening will be case number PZC 38-14 under new business. This is the adaptive reuse program. This is a presentation, discussion, recommendation, a request by the town of Florence to establish an adaptive reuse program for the town of Florence that would allow work under the framework of the previous adapted town core infill initiative plan to facilitate redevelopment and development within the core of the town of Florence. Do we have a presentation on that?
Just a few words on that, Chair, members of the commission. But I want to let you know that, I mean, this is, as I said before, the library recreation complex is a project that's going to continue to evolve, and I imagine we might have some comments from council even on Monday night or the public. So it will continue to evolve, and we're going to take your concerns seriously, and I know we'll work closely with Aaron, Swaback Partners, Low Mountain, et cetera, on, you know, continuing to address all the comments that are put forward and keeping you up to date on any changes on the project as, you know, as it moves forward. So with that said, a while back at council, we had a couple of work sessions, and one of them was a joint work session that the P&Z and the Historic District Advisory Commission were invited to. We talked about this draft. Could you change the slide? We talked about the this idea of an adaptive reuse program within the town of Florence. There's a couple of programs out there that other communities had throughout the state of Arizona, but not really a ton of them. So we searched all over the place to get some ideas. We got some ideas from the International Code Council, from some of the economic development entities. City of Phoenix has a fairly new program out there dealing with adaptive reuse to help them to reuse some of the older buildings in their community. Just recently, there was actually an article in the news about Tempe City Council could make it easier to open up businesses in old buildings. Well, they're doing, basically their program is mirroring ours. And what are the key components of this program that we would do? Well, we're allowing greater utilization of the existing building code. Really, you can get deep into that code, and you have to kind of be a building guy, an architect, to really understand how all the codes work, of course. But existing building code is great, but we're enhancing the utilization of existing building code through this program. But we're doing so with making sure that we heard in the comments in the work sessions is don't do anything to compromise life safety. So when it comes to, you know, fire-related issues, electrical, let's not compromise that. But let's do whatever we can besides that to try and make the buildings easier to be reused. Basically, we're dealing with buildings in the core of town within the infill incentive district, because this is how this mechanism works. It works being adopted under the regulatory authority of the infill incentive district that council already adopted, which the state of Arizona gave us the right to create such a program. So this is working really under that program. That's why it's a policy, not an ordinance that we're doing. But we have some leeway to work under that program to address, again, the existing building code, different kinds of special occupancies, provisions on plumbing, which is kind of a stickler sometimes when you do a project and you find out that you have to add maybe additional bathroom or restroom, you know, that is costly. So there's provisions for that. There's even some provisions in this policy regarding plan review fees and permit fees, and even some incentives for the reduction of development impact fees for single-family homes within the district and within lots that are part of older subdivisions where they have the water and sewer already, you know, either in the alley or in the street adjacent to them. That's another comment that we heard through the work sessions, is that we don't necessarily want to incentivize, you know, development on every single lot in the town of Florence, but we want to really focus on these infill lots, and we want to focus on the reuse of the existing buildings, and as far as subdivisions is concerned, you know, really focus on the incentive on the older subdivisions that are within developed areas. So where you have a home here and a home here and a vacant lot here and a vacant lot there, really focus on that, and not so much some of these older some of the subdivisions that were done in 2000 and beyond that are sitting on the outskirts of town that are still, you know, that were never developed. So you're really focusing on infill. Some of the other provisions in this program are going to help somebody when they pick up a building that's been utilized as probably a commercial building for, you know, quite some time, but it's sat vacant for a while. Well, the first thing that we always hear is, well, do I have to pave the parking lot? And a lot of times that's not really the greatest thing to do anyhow, is to put a whole sea of asphalt down on this project, because now you know, we don't have the most sophisticated stormwater program and a bunch of retention basins in the downtown. So a lot of times the water is running down the street, and its goal ultimately is typically, you know, to get to the Gila River and go beyond Ruggles Ditch and so forth. So, you know, paving isn't necessarily the best solution to everything. So we want to provide some options to provide some other, you know, surfaces for parking. And you'll see there's some projects in Tempe or even in Gilbert and some places where you can see alternative parking surfaces utilized. Now they have to be stable, they have to be durable, they have to be maintained, and they also have to meet the Pinal County air quality requirements, so, you know, they can't be kicking up a lot of dust. But, you know, some of these ideas that you see here on the screen are preferable because you're still working with a pervious surface, so you're not dealing with a lot of runoff, and you're not, you know, triggering potentially the need to have an engineer to calculate retention and so forth on your property, or utilizing a good portion of your property for retention. One of the other things that we run up against in the downtown is sometimes you've got this property that maybe it's just an acre or something, but you've got for some reason a parcel line that's going through the middle of it or through a quarter of it, and the person owns both of them, and, you know, so you could do a lot combination, you could do a re-subdivision. But what we found is some other cities have been successful in basically essentially doing a unity agreement or recording a document that would say, for the purposes of the planning and building safety, we're considering it as one lot. So we're essentially marrying it through that process instead of having to go through a more cumbersome subdivision process. So we're trying to kind of pull out, you know, just do everything we can to enhance the development in the downtown and the redevelopment. Really focusing on these buildings that have been around for a while, and they're challenging to work with. The buildings that were built before 2000. So that's the intent of the program. We did need an advisory body to send a recommendation to the council. That's the way the infill incentive program works. And then I'll note as well that the infill incentive district that's included in your package, that program is still out there, and that applies to this larger area. We've set some parameters within this program that it's not applying to all this area. It's not applying to Territory Square. That's new development. Everything in Territory Square is going to be built according to whatever the codes are, you know, today or in the future, in 20 years or 30 years. You know, the stuff in these newer areas on the outskirts, that's all modern, can be modern codes. But when you get into, you know, the pocketed areas, there's got to be a little more leeway. But as I was saying, the infill incentive district is still out there, and it applies to this whole area. So on an individual basis, if anybody else has a scenario for development that falls outside of the adaptive reuse policy, they still actually have the right to still come to the commission on an individual basis, say, you know what, I just picked up this lot here, or this building here, or this subdivision here, and you know, here's where I need your help. I want to utilize some of this regulatory relief that's allowed under the infill incentive district, and we can look at those on a case-by-case basis. Again, the procedure would be you would provide a recommendation to council, and council would approve or not approve that deviation. But the neat thing about this program is that we don't have to do this now case by case by case by case. We can just say, under these scenarios, if you fall within the parameters of this program, you're eligible for these things that are included in this program. So, you know, along with, you know, the flexibility that we've provided through some of the general plan land use districts, the DC zoning district that we've applied on a lot of the properties downtown, our PAD district, which offers some flexibility, usually more on the newer projects. You know, sometimes you might have a variance that comes forward, but I think, you know, this is a unique program in that it's addressing multiple properties and parcels at one time versus having to come back and go through a process of zoning or variances and so forth. So that's my brief description on that program.
Questions on that?
The only comment I have, if I remember how when we all got together and discussed this the first time, there seemed to be a desire to provide some relief when someone's taking a commercial lease. And I should have spoke up at the time, but there should not be any code relief when it comes to a commercial lease. That's a bargaining chip between the leasee and the landlord, and they need to work that out. It doesn't belong in the town's bailiwick. The town's policy should be you meet code or you don't open, and leave it between the landlord and the person taking the lease.
I concur.
Billy?
Good.
Dinner's waiting, I want to get to it.
If I have no further discussion, I'll take a motion on this case.
I make a motion that we send the mayor and town council a favorable recommendation of the adaptive reuse program, PZC-38-14.
I second.
I have a motion on the floor this evening to approve case number PZC 38-14, the adaptive reuse permit program. Correction, that's a favorable motion to be forwarded to the town council. The motion this evening was made by Commissioner Garcia, and it was seconded by Commissioner Pranzo. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Please forward a favorable recommendation on the infill project. Next agenda item for this evening will be the staff report.
Chair, members of the commission, I'm going to sneak something into my staff report, and hope I'm not violating any rules or anything, but you know, regretfully, on Monday night's council agenda, there's an item to accept the resignation of Chairman Woolley from the Planning and Zoning Commission, and when I say regretfully, I mean that sincerely. You know, so many years, I kidded before that it was 20, 25 years, but you know, it's 12.
Just started my 14th year.
Just started your 14th year, but you know what? In the grand scheme of things, that you know, all the changes that you've seen as a member of the commission and as a chairperson of the commission, you know, just amazing when you think of really looking back 14 years ago and what has transpired since then. It's amazing, and your service is so much appreciated, as with every single one of you and every single one that serves on any board or commission. But to have your longevity and professionalism, which is sincerely appreciated, and And of course, we hope that you'll continue to stay involved in various town activities, because you are just a major asset to the community. So I snuck that in there, and I'm seeing a bunch of nods, so I know that although it's not a discussion item, I'm seeing consensus in those comments. I wanted to give you a quick report on the status of our Padilla Park project downtown. As you know, it wasn't too long ago that the site behind the Silver King Hotel looked a little bit like this. Mr. Pranzo actually had a daily view of the dirt lot and the lack of improvements on both of these properties, the Silver King property and the adjacent property. We've had this idea for a long time of doing something wonderful with the property. That helped to come to fruition when we were able to acquire the property from the Padilla family and merge the Silver King property and the Padilla property into one parcel. That allowed us to get rid of the somewhat road that was dividing the two properties, merge us into one parcel, and develop a park. And we looked at this project, and from the get-go, we said, you know, there's really three components that we want to achieve out of this. We want to provide a benefit to the building and our folks that are utilizing the building, hopefully for traffics that generate uses that generate foot traffic, namely restaurants and other uses. So we want to have an extension of the building. We also want to have kind of more of an interactive component in there, and then we want to have an outdoor amphitheater, a grass area. So we started this off with knowing that we really like those three components, and we've been able to put them together quite successfully. With a little delay, of course. When you all are familiar, we found hundreds of bottles, historic bottles, on the property, and so we had to get the archaeologists involved and do some excavations and monitoring and reporting. That was a little hiccup in the project. It was a neat find, nevertheless. But we've been able to kind of put the components together on this project, and we are just days away from being 100% complete. And I wanted to show you some of the imagery, and there's been things that have been added since these slides were taken. There's an overview. The grass is starting to take a little bit better than what you can see here. Those trees are going to be absolutely beautiful. Those are a Chinese pistache tree in the foreground. In the background, you have some mesquite, some desert willows, and also some desert museums. You'll see that we have the pavers providing the extension of the Silver King Hotel, so we have that patio area. If you go by there now, you'll notice that we have the picnic tables out there already and some trash receptacles. There is the splash pad water feature, which really provides kind of that interactive component, so that when families come to either dine at the restaurant or to see a show in the amphitheater, there's also some added excitement for some of the younger folks in our community. The building that you see there in the middle is actually a concrete bathroom structure, because we needed additional bathroom facilities on the property. Didn't want to try and squeeze them into the Silver King Hotel for space needs, but also for the difficulty of doing that. Looked at making modifications to the carriage house, but with that being an adobe structure, we also faced challenges on trying to retrofit bathrooms into that facility. Went with the idea of having this modular complex there that works both to serve the needs of the Silver King Hotel, the restaurants that are in there, and then also folks that are coming to use the park. Have the wrought iron fence completely around the property, and you'll see the brick pillars, the new LED lighting that is on the property. If you've gone by there at night, you can see it's lit up beautifully. It's not excessive. It's not spilling over, but it lights up the park beautifully. And then also on the corner, you'll see that we were able to finally get the companion historic Florence sign right on the corner of Ruggles and Main. So we did the other one a while back at Main and Butte, and this has been on our to-do list for a while. We finally were able to incorporate that into this project. Also, we're able, just today, we got some historical signs that tell a little bit about the history of the site. Those were installed today, and there also was a pier that was completed with some dedication plaques on the site, and a couple of additional amenities that were added on the splash pad. We have a dedication set for the park that's open to the public on October 23rd at 6 o'clock, and I believe at 7 o'clock that same evening, there's actually the first concert in the park planned. And both the dedication and the concert in the park are open to the public. You're encouraged to come. This is an extremely unique project that our department, we were very fortunate to be working on this along with the Parks Department and others in the town. And then I know after that, Parks wants to start programming events like the movie in the park event that we have typically right now over at the Little League facility. But with the amphitheater design, with the berm of the grass and the concrete pad there, it's going to be a wonderful facility to have events like that as well. So we're really excited about that. You know, this is building a little bit of interest and momentum. Hopefully, it continues to have a positive spin-off on some of these lots downtown. This is just another thing we're doing, just like, again, the DC zoning or the adaptive reuse policy. You know, anything that we can do to kind of keep this activity going. And so I just wanted to share this with you.
Thanks.
And no additional comments beyond that.
All right, next agenda item this evening will be number 8. This is call to the public for commission response. Call to the public for public comments on issues within the jurisdiction of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Individual commission members may respond to criticism made, may ask to review a matter raised, or may ask that the matter be put on a future agenda. At this time, I'm going to open the call to the public. The call to the public is now open. Do I have anybody that would like to address the commission at this time? With the absence of the public, I'm going to close the call to the public and open it to the commission. Commissioner Pranzo?
Padilla Park, all I can say is thank you. You've done a lot for my home.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Patrick?
Just for
Well,
you.
Just for me.
Just for you, Gary.
Well, I'd like to say we're going to hate to lose you on the commission, and I certainly appreciate you know, all the help that you provided me and the learning about what it's like to be a commission member and all of that. And I'm sure everybody on the commission is going to be sad to see you go, but I understand you're doing some other things, which is pretty cool. So it's on and up, right?
Mm-hmm. On and on, always forward.
Yep. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Petty?
I will just echo what Commissioner Patrick has to say. I'm not happy about you leaving.
Thanks.
You didn't ask me first, but not that it would have made a difference, I'm sure.
The first thing I want to say is Padilla Park. Thank you for finally doing something to Mr. Pranzo's front yard. You don't know, I mean, it's just, and it's great that he's volunteered to go out there every Saturday and cut the grass for the town too, so I thought that was awesome on your behalf. So.
On his
Have
golf
you seen the
team.
list of parties that he's got lined up for Padilla Park?
You know, I just want to say, I came to this commission 14 years ago, and what I've seen from 14 years ago to what I see today, I drive all over the place in this town now and go, we did that, we did this, we did that. And I think way back to 14 years ago when if planning and zoning said no, it just went to the council anyways and got approved. You know, so I look at what we've morphed into. We've become a real committee that when we vote yay or we vote nay or however, we're actually considered by our council as a worthy source compared to 14, 15 years ago when it was like, oh, well, they said no, so we'll just go next week to the council meeting, and it turns around and gets approved. So, you know, I've seen it grow. This is my second time working with Mr. Pranzo, so I think he can reiterate that this committee has come leaps and bounds. And I really have to say that my job here became easy when you guys came to planning and zoning. We sit up here and 90% of the stuff that is presented to us, the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. 90% of the stuff, the questions aren't there because you guys are doing all that work for us ahead of time. So it's been great watching it grow into that. So I'm not gone. I'm not leaving Florence. I just have some other things going on in my life right now that career-wise that are taking a higher precedence, and I need to commit more time to them, which takes time from the town, so I can't commit what I should be to the town. So I'm not gone. I'll still be here. So, all right, with that, do I have anything else? I'll call for a motion to adjourn then.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion on the floor to adjourn the meeting at 7:59. Motion made by Commissioner Puttrick and seconded by Commissioner Garcia. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This meeting is now adjourned.